development related. Were you going to mention the Euless Town Center business?
I forgot that.
Before you do, I very recently conveyed to y'all expectation of a possible restaurant at the Euless Town Center. Little did I know that about 2 hours before I conveyed that information, someone else had come in and made application for building permits on the exact same place. So it's not intentional, but it was, you had a developer or an owner going in one direction and potential people going in another direction. So what is going in there?
In the space that had formerly been occupied by Ponchos, the shoe company called Skechers will be going in with a retail store. We've got building construction plans for the renovation of that former Poncho site. Should be around 6,000 to 7,000 square foot store.
That's a big Skechers store.
Big store. Big store.
They've got locations now at Fairground Mills and at the new Grand Prairie, it's pretty new Grand Prairie outlet mall. So I think it's a good store, a good addition. Thought it was going to be, but it's good. And we will immediately go to work to find the restaurant and the place. There are very nearby, so within stone's throw, we're working on that right away. Anything else? I guess we do. I think from the information Mike has just gotten, we expect a pretty good announcement of Lake Park in the near very near future. Is that a 40,000 square foot entertainment?
Could be as close to 50,000 based on what they're telling us now.
An anticipated opening this year. So
This year.
excellent. That's the goal. So hopefully we'll get back with you on that very quickly. So we believe that's momentum growing out there. To bring forward the third building, Mike, y'all permitted, or they got site plan for 2, and the third one will come rather quickly.
First meeting in February,
Yeah. So
full council.
okay, so you'll see that. So that's momentum's building out there quickly. All right. We had a discussion at our last meeting regarding the, what year is it, 40th, 39th, 40th year CDBG, which will actually be in 2015. And then we discussed the City Hall Plaza versus the ramps, and those of you that thought we needed to look at that a little closer. Also, we owed you the report on the engineering firm that was doing the assessment out there. So we have all that for you in recommendation. That the application is due this week, and then the resolution would come sometime in February. So we need a pretty good indication from you tonight that we're kind of headed in the right direction. So Mike's going to walk us through this.
As Mr. McCamey indicated, the Strickler-Rollins was hired based on their technical expertise associated with the ADA compliance criteria. They evaluated the condition of the plaza area, and actually from the time that they were originally hired to the development of this report, their scope actually was broadened to include the ramp as you're leaving the plaza west to get to the library, and then the ramp or sidewalk beneath the covered canopy that actually takes you into the library. So they assessed the condition of those ramps as well. Their charge was not to evaluate from an aesthetic standpoint the condition of the plaza area, but truly to identify, based on what we had understood the requirements being from the Tarrant County, is you need to get a third party to do an independent evaluation and determine what's in compliance and what's out. So the product of their report is to identify what areas need to be improved, what barriers exist from an ADA compliance standpoint for it to be accessible to the public. So not surprisingly, as you can see from the right top picture with the ramp that extends from the parking lot in front of the clock into the plaza area, that is not in compliance. Any number of areas specific to the plaza that would represent any type of direct route that you can walk from the parking lot to get to finance building and pay your water bill, from the parking lot there to the east to walk to the library. Any direct path was identified, and if it did not meet the slope, or if it had experienced a pavement condition that went beyond just being a trip hazard, but truly represented a barrier to ADA accessibility, that was identified as needing to be reconstructed. So through the report from Triple Rollins, we were able to identify a cost estimate to make those repairs, and that cost estimate in terms of what would be eligible from a construction and engineering design standpoint would be approximately $247,000. Now, what they also provided the city was, you know, if you're going out there and you're making the extent of the replacement to the pavement that can create those direct paths, and you're going ahead and doing the ramps, if you wanted to go ahead and consider making other improvements to the plaza that would basically create repairs of the entire plaza area, then there could be an additional expense of upwards of $110,000 that would just make sense that if you're going in there and busting up the concrete, making those improvements, go ahead and logically extend that to a little bit broader area. So what would be directly eligible for the CDBG allocation based on the construction and design would be about $247,000. And then we've also identified 50 additional sidewalk ramp projects that y'all are very familiar with the city having completed those for the last couple of years. So to get to the specific numbers, we would have, in combination with the allocation from the 40th year and the monies that could be rolled over from the 38th year, remember, funds are not expended, you have to skip a year and then you can roll it into that current year's allocation. There is a little bit over $385,000 that would be available through CDBG. So in combination with the ramp projects and what could be completed on the plaza and extended into the library, that total application made could be in that $357,500 range. So as Mr. McCamey indicated, there could be a blend of both the ramp projects as well as completing some of those improvements to the plaza and to the library.
Mike, could you go back to that first picture? Yeah, that one. The one on the right, we're saying we've got railings, and I know in the past I've had situations where because of the slope was too much, rather than rebuilding our sidewalk, we installed railings and we were able to pass because we had railings to assist. Is the reason you can't do it there is because the railing is too wide?
Has to do with it being a continuous slope as opposed to there's a minimum distance that they have to travel
Instead of
before
just
there's
a
a landing area.
Okay.
That's one that we were confident would not be in compliance. The one that kind of surprised me is the ramp between City Hall and the library, because that was built.
Long time ago.
So it's the same thing. It's the distance. You have to have those leveling plays out, what you call them. You have to level out for a while. So, but that's not necessarily a bad deal, because we've had trouble with that stuff. That's got textured concrete.
Bulky.
Yeah, we've had trouble with that for a long time. So we think you kind of, unlike your shopping center or some private facility, the same requirements are on the city for our there, no, it's not making it prettier at all. It's not a aesthetics issue. It's just some of that, or a lot of that concrete is, these buildings were built around 1967, and with the trees and the shifting soil, it's just got problems. And so we feel like we need to make that more accessible.
So are you gonna make a smooth walkway going from City Hall to the library, or is it gonna be bumpy like that?
Oh, there's been no decision made. I can just about guarantee it will not be anything like it's out there now.
See, that's the thing that the skateboarders love is all of that, to make it a little bit more interesting.
Well, and you mentioned skateboarders, it's interesting that you should mention that there.
Isn't it, that I've never seen them.
But one of their recommendations is their skateboard deterrent stuff that you put on benches and rails, and all of this would be skateboard deterrent. That would go a long way, but I mean, that's kind of an added extra. Sir?
I'm just going to identify a ramp on the west side of the library. I know we have some patrons who are in wheelchairs and they would like to have a little closer access. Can we look at doing that?
We've talked about that, that once we get into this, it's correcting, I didn't bring my pointer today, but you see number 29?
Problem.
Right there. You recall, we had an issue there, and you can see the little L-shaped sidewalk, that was added because it's, that ramp out of the library really puts you out. It's kind of hard to picture this, but it kind of puts you out of the work shape. And so that was added, but we got a problem on the west side, so we'll expand that. But that whole area needs some attention. Ray and have always had trouble with those beds, holding water. And so we'll get into that when they, get expanded. That would not be an ADA issue.
Right.
What he's identified is simply the ADA issues. And then we would, probably in this upcoming year, budget for $2,000 funds to do the balance of it, because there's no need to do it part of it and not doing the rest of it. The building, the obvious different colored roof there, that is the planning and development, planning and engineering building. That is our last building that's due renovation, and I think that is on our plan for 2016. So one thing we've talked about is also in the upcoming budget, perhaps advancing the funds for the preliminary design of that, so that we make sure that what is done in this is in compliance with whatever will be done with that building in 2016. So I hope that has addressed obviously Mike's got much more information on what the deficiencies are, and that's available to you, but I hope that has addressed the need to make sure that there are true ADA deficiencies, and we're also addressing the neighborhood complaints and the neighborhoods.
Sir, can I run the number 36, if there's that adding a handicap parking, is that what that's doing, or you see?
36?
Top left-hand side?
Yeah, that one's gonna be an interesting one. And I don't know, Mike can explain to us, but it's,
Is it accessible or?
that's the handicap parking area across the slope.
Exactly, and, the intent of what Shreveport Rollins work did is to provide Tarrant County with enough information to agree that improvements need to be made. Once this has been approved for funding, then you'll move into the design, and then we'll have much more information to detail for you about what specifically is going to be proposed to address the specific area that's out of compliance.
We don't know, what we know is not right. I mean, it's the slope. And it's somewhat beyond me how something could be built 15 years ago, or 16 or 18, whatever it's been, and it's not in compliance, but it's not. That We've done, the major changes around the library, we've done little by little as we've had issues pointed out to us. And, we need to add that west side as we talked about.
Be nice to add more handicap parking on the west side.
Well, I think that's, we need to look at that.
There's one thing, and that is, when I go up on Thursday night, when we have the library board meeting, we have a quadriplegic that is a board member, and that so many times he has to park way down, so he has enough space
Over the side of it.
to open the side of his vehicle and get out. Whereas we've got them in there, but people park in there even though they're van accessible.
And there's only a few, and that's a dead end parking right there. So that we looked at.
In the meantime, when you're looking at all of these improvements, what about the lighting? Is that considered?
No, it's not in their scope of work, nor is it an ADA issue. But as the paving out there, the concrete work will impact the light. I think there's 4 lights out there, so ultimately, at least on that plaza, it will have to be looked at because of the necessity of construction work, but it was not in their scope. Is that in their estimates, Mike, the reflective lighting, or is it just?
No, it didn't get into that level of detail.
I think we need to look at our campus, because at nighttime it can be very dark there, and we don't want people falling and hurting themselves.
We would put that in on the list. You talking about parking lots or just area lighting?
Both.
All the above? Okay.
Thank you.
All right. There's bollard lighting down the ramp down the library.
But when we have big events at the library, many times they come and park in front of City Hall and use that ramp to walk down there. And just getting around City Hall onto that ramp and going down, it is kind of dark.
Are y'all okay with us moving forward with an application? And it's always been a little bit of an awkward process because we have to come to you regardless of this and tell you what we're proposing. And then you don't actually take any formal action on it until the end of February 9th or sometime in February, that resolution is due. But applications do ahead. So it's kind of a staff application. Ratify it, I guess. Okay, so we'll go forward with that and we'll look at including that in next year's budget. And of course, we've got some allocated funds already for facilities. Because there's already not there, but I kind of doubt it. Anything else on that? Okay, then. Good. I think